Hi Leslie.
Hello.
How are you doing? We're obviously here today, and this all looks very exciting stuff, but we're obviously here today to look at how to use a sheath.
Absolutely.
And how to get the best outcome for your patient or your resident.
Yes.
Obviously for us, it looks a very intimate procedure.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how we would deal with that in practice.
I think being confident in carrying out the procedure is the first thing that you need to get across to your the gentleman that you're assessing and fitting with a sheath, because there's if you're anxious, they will pick up on that and they will become anxious themselves. But at all times, making sure that their dignity is preserved and that their privacy is the utmost importance, so that they're respected during this procedure.
Yeah, and I would imagine if you're actually doing that with your patient, it actually helps to break down some of the barriers in the conversation with them as well, makes them feel much more comfortable with the procedure. And I certainly think I'd feel much more comfortable as well. So can we have a wee look at the equipment?
Yes.
You've obviously got a few sheaths here. Is there differences in the sheaths?
There are. Generally speaking, the two differences are that the sheaths are of different lengths. Okay. You can see there that one's much shorter than the other.
Okay, and is there differences in applying these sheaths?
Yes, there are, and there's also reasons for them being different lengths.
Okay.
So the first reason would be that the longer sheath would account for a penis of longer length.
Okay.
So generally speaking, if you're doing an assessment, you want to ensure that you've got the correct sheath for the patient.
Okay.
So that you're going to get the best outcome.
And obviously length is important.
Yes.
And why would that be?
Yeah, well, for the sheath to stick well, there needs to be enough, the glue needs to be on the penile skin so that it gets a good adherence. Okay. So if you're doing that assessment, an easy way to remember it is if you've got about a finger length of penis, then the longer length sheath is the best one to go for.
That's the better one, okay.
And if you've got about a thumb length, which sometimes happens in gentlemen as they age, or just that there's a bit of penile retraction, so if there's about a thumb length of penis, then the shorter length sheath is the one that would probably be most successful for them.
And what would happen if the gentleman was fully retracted?
Then a sheath is most likely not be the best option for that gentleman, and that would mean that you would need to look at alternatives, and that can be sourced from speaking with the local continence team.
Okay, lovely. Okay. So fitting them, you were saying they're slightly different?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at a longer sheath, you want to, or can I go back just a little bit? When you're doing the assessment, you want to ensure that you're looking underneath the penis as well as on the top. Because if the penis joins the scrotum much further down underneath than it does on the top, then you're looking to be fitting the shorter length sheath.
Oh, right. So that's an important factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you fit a longer length sheath, it may well unroll on the top, but it would just stop underneath and then could risk the patient's skin.
Okay, so that would maybe rub and irritate the patient's skin and
absolutely.
Cause irritation. Okay, right. Yeah. So you'd use the shorter sheath.
Yes. And that's something that people get a little bit confused over, what length of sheath. But again, if you remember this finger length and the thumb length, it's just generally an easier way for you to remember what sheath to choose.
And is the length the only difference in them?
No, they come in many different diameters or circumferences. And to determine what size you want to use, you need to use a measuring guide to assess the penile circumference. And every sheath manufacturer produces a measuring guide to go with their sheath. Okay. So it's always best to use the one that corresponds to the sheath that you're intending to use, so that the exact measurements are correct. So the measuring guide is a selection of cut-out holes, and the diameters are all different. Okay. And you place this guide over the penis, and it has to fit snugly. So you don't want it to be too tight to constrict the penis, but equally you don't want it to be too large. So if you just go through the sizing, you can see easily that some are very small for this particular gentleman, and some are very large. So you want to choose the one that's right in the middle.
And would you do this for every person?
It's best practice to do so, yes, because it means that you're assessing that individual. And you might look at the person and think, yes, I know what size they're likely to be. However, just to confirm it, you're best to check with the measuring guide. Yes.
Okay. As you say, it's good practice.
Absolutely. Right, so the reason that you don't want it to be too tight is that the sheath will be constricting, it'll be uncomfortable for the gentleman, and could potentially lead to blood restriction into the glands, into the skin.
Okay.
And you don't want it to be too large because it will not fit snugly. And when the gentleman passes urine, the urine may well track back up those wrinkles in the sheath and cause the sheath adhesive to
and that's
dissolve.
Obviously very important for the gentleman, because I would imagine it'd be quite uncomfortable if it wasn't fitted properly.
Absolutely, yes. And also it could potentially be very embarrassing if the gentleman is passing urine and they're out and about and the sheath then comes off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very important.
So you ascertain which size you want, and then you look to get that sheath. Now, for the sheath to be obtained, once you've determined what size you would like, you can contact the local continence service. They will provide you with some samples so that you're not ordering a full box of sheaths initially, in case that sheath or the gentleman doesn't tolerate it or the sheath doesn't.
And obviously I would assume most health boards now have a continence service somewhere that you could find information.
Yes, absolutely. You could find information on the local intranet or indeed the website. The website, yeah.
Okay.
And
Good.
I would hope that information would be easily obtained. If you can't find it on the internet, that members of the organisation would be able to point you in the right direction. So
even your GP may be able to pop
Absolutely.
you in the right direction. Okay, good.
So show you how to fit a sheath.
Okay.
Fitting the two sheaths, the shorter length and the longer length, are slightly different. So I'll show you fitting both of
That's
those.
good, yeah.
So the first thing you want to do is to ensure that the skin is washed really thoroughly with a soap or a shower gel that doesn't have any moisturisers in it.
Oh, right. Is there a reason why we wouldn't have moisturiser?
Indeed, yes. If you've got moisturised skin, it leaves a lovely film on the skin, but it means that the glue isn't going to stick as well to the skin and may cause the sheath to fall off.
Right.
Again, if you remember putting hand cream on and then putting any adhesive dressing on your hand, it doesn't stick for very long. Okay. So it's the same as using a sheath. Yeah. And again, making sure that the skin is really well dried.
Mm-hmm. So could you use talcum then?
It's not a good idea, again, because it just leaves a barrier between the skin and the glue and it can prevent it sticking really well.
Okay, so no moisturiser, no talcum.
Absolutely, yes. So you've got the skin washed and dried. Some sheaths come with these hair protectors, and it's just, as it says, to keep the hair out of the way of the sheath, and means that it's not going to get caught in the glue and be uncomfortable for the gentleman. Okay,
so that's just to protect the pubic hair from getting caught.
Absolutely.
So you wouldn't shave?
No, don't. It would be absolutely fine to trim the pubic hair back, but you don't want to shave it because that can cause skin irritation or trauma to the skin, and that then results in potential problems for the gentleman and can be very irritating.
Probably lose a good friend in the gentleman.
Absolutely,
yes.
So trimming the hairs back is fine, just with a really blunt pair of scissors, just to trim those hair back, or just use the hair protectors, and it means that you don't need to do either of those. Okay. It just takes the hair out. So you want to put the hair protector on, like so, ensuring that as many of the hairs as possible are behind this little bit of tissue.
Okay.
If you put it on diagonally, it just gives a better coverage.
Okay.
And then we'll use the longer length sheath first. So wash and dry your hands and wear gloves if you're fitting the sheath if anybody's fitting the sheath for the gentleman. If the gentleman's fitting the sheath themselves, they don't need to wear gloves. They can do that independently.
So if you're doing the procedure for somebody,
Absolutely.
You would wear gloves with this. Okay.
Yes.
But it doesn't need to be sterile?
No, not at all. No, just
a clean
pair of gloves. Yes. So you would wash and dry the skin, hair protector on, and then take the sheath out of the packet. So this is the longer length sheath that we're going to fit first of all. So you want to unroll that sheath, and then the tip of the penis just goes into the end of the sheath, and then unroll it on. And then once it's unrolled once, or stop your hand, if you gently pull forward on that sheath, it'll make the sheath easier to stick, and it'll also elongate the penis and allow better length to roll the sheath onto. And
so the rolling is important?
Absolutely. So just unroll it in a smooth motion, but not in continuous motion. Okay. If you unroll a little bit, it'll stop your gloves getting stuck.
As well.
Yes, absolutely. It'll stop the gloves getting stuck to the glue, which can be quite problematic. So you just unroll it a little bit at a time. and then get the gentleman to use the heat of his hand around the sheath for 5 or 10 seconds. It warms the glue up and makes it stick well.
There seems to be quite a bit of space here. Is that okay?
It is. That's quite important, because if you put the tip of the penis down too far into this dome area, the penis tip may rub against the sheath and cause some irritation. Right, but also when the gentleman passes urine, if the penis is down here, then it means that there's nowhere for the urine to collect before it runs down into the drainage bag.
So that can act like a reservoir?
Absolutely, yes, and allows for better drainage.
Right, okay. And would you leave this on?
No, you don't have to. Once that is on, once the sheath is on, you can just remove that and take it off again.
And what about if, obviously, might be feeling a wee bit concerned that that's going to stick properly? Could you use a bit of tape round about that? Or?
Definitely not. No. You just want to rely solely on the glue that's inside the sheath, which should be perfectly sufficient to keep this sheath on. Okay. If you're finding that the sheath is coming off, it may be that it's not the correct sheath for that particular gentleman, and you want another assessment to be done to ensure that you've got the right.
So you would reassess that and make sure that it's the right one that's actually there.
Definitely.
So no tape round about here. That
no.
Could probably constrict it.
Absolutely, it can constrict it, because everybody would potentially be putting tape on at different tightness, which may cause problems.
I'm also, what would happen if a gentleman had an erection? Would that be okay?
That would be absolutely fine. The sheath is made out of a material that will stretch, which will mean that the erection may happen. The sheath may come off during the erection. However, you just allow the erection to be over and then put a fresh sheath on. Okay. But it will not cause any damage.
And fitting with a sheath when you've got an erection?
Best not to. Yeah, and again, best not to do the sizing, because it would be an incorrect size. Okay. So you would want to make sure that the penis is flaccid, and before you're going to be fitting the sheath.
Okay. That sounds good.
So that's the fitting of the longer length sheath. Okay. We'll take this one off, fit the shorter length sheath, and then attach the bags to it to show how that happens. So to take the sheath off, it's best to do it in a shower or a bath, and warm soapy water around the sheath, and then just unroll the sheath in the same way that it was put on.
Why is it important to be in a bath or a shower?
It just helps dissolve the glue.
Oh, right, okay.
And it'll take the sheath off just in the same way, and then it can be disposed of just in the general waste bin. And
obviously it looks kind of plastic. Could we put it into the recycle bin?
No, just into general waste. It can't be recycled.
Waste.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll show you how to fit the shorter length sheath, and then I'll show you the fitting of the bag.
Okay.
So the shorter length sheath comes with this little protective cap on it, and you just squeeze the end of that cap in like that, and then pull it off. And again, just hold the sheath in that dome area and unroll. Unroll it once, gently pull forward, and then unroll it. And you can see the difference in the length already.
Yes, the other one was up to here, wasn't
Absolutely. It? And then the heat of the gentleman's hand around the sheath for 5 or 10 seconds just warms the glue up again and ensures it sticks well.
And obviously you make it look quite easy, that application. Would I maybe struggle with it if I was doing it for the first time?
I think for the very first time, yes, it can be quite a fiddly procedure, but definitely the more you do it, the better you become at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously easier. At the end of the day, it's what's good for the patient as well as the resident.
Yeah, it means that they're getting the best outcome, and they've got more independence and more freedom.
Yeah, okay.
And their skin's looked after as well. So you would attach a leg bag onto the end of the sheath, like so, and just push it in to this end, and that is the same on every sheath.
It looks that you can give it a good wee push on there.
You do. You need to push it on quite far, just to make sure that when the urine is passed, that not any leakage is going to happen at that point. Okay. But it certainly doesn't need to be pushed down to the bottom of the ridges, just part of the way down. Yep. And then you want to make sure that you've got leg bag straps onto the top and bottom of the leg bag. Okay. And you want to always make sure that those straps are placed through the cuts in the bag, and that they're placed over the back of the bag.
Okay. So there's wee eyelets on these bags that they fit through. Well, that's quite sticky as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got silicone on the back of it to stop it sliding.
Oh, right, up and down the leg, right, okay.
So they go through the little eyelets and the silicone will get a grip onto the skin, and it means that it'll stay static on the skin.
Okay.
And
is there any particular place in the leg it should be placed then?
It's better to be on the calf.
The calf.
Because it allows for better drainage.
Right, okay.
So we're reliant solely on gravity for the urine to drain out of the sheath. And if it's on the thigh, we've not got an awful lot of...
No, it's just up here, isn't it? So it's not going to get the same gravity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we want it to sit on the calf to allow... And also it means that it's easier for the gentleman to empty or easier for somebody else to empty for that gentleman. Okay. So you can just pull up the bottom of their trouser leg rather than having to take their trousers down to empty it if it's on the calf. There may be some circumstances that a gentleman does need to go on their calf, and their thigh, but that would be few and far between generally on the calf.
Okay.
And then you would want to also use the strap around the top of the thigh.
Oh, that looks interesting. Why would you be using that?
For two reasons. It takes more of the weight and means that the sheath isn't going to pull as much on the weight of the urine is not going to pull as much on the sheath.
On the sheath, okay.
And potentially risking it being pulled off.
Okay. Yep.
And also it means that the sheath isn't going to twist.
And prevent and stop.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So if you use this strap, and to do that, you just feed it through, and then that would just wrap around the gentleman's thigh, and it keeps the sheath in a nice straight line, allowing good
And you would
drainage.
always use this, obviously, wouldn't you, to prevent this from...
Absolutely, yeah.
And no kinking.
Yeah. Because the weight of urine in the bags can be quite heavy.
Much does the bag hold up?
It can hold about 500 mils, but I would hope that it doesn't get to as much as that if somebody's wearing a sheath. So
you would maybe be telling the patient to empty about 3-4 hourly or something?
Absolutely. Like that? Obviously, it depends how much that gentleman passes, but generally speaking, allow the bag to be about 3/4 full, so about every 3 to 4 hours to empty it.
And obviously, you're keeping this on in bed?
You can do, yes.
And is there any particular things you should do for bedtime?
The best thing to do is to keep this strap on, because when you're rolling around in bed, the sheath can easily get twisted. So if you keep the top strap on, it means that it's keeping the sheath in a nice straight line. But you can certainly take the leg bag straps off, or some patients may choose to use a little sock instead of the straps.
Oh, right.
And again, that can be taken off.
Okay.
Often people pass a lot more urine overnight.
Even, you were saying about the sock. Would I be able to get that from the GP?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, they're readily available.
Okay.
And they come in different sizes, so you would just measure the size of the calf, and then the appropriate size would be ordered for you.
And what about these straps? How long do these last? Do you put a new one in every time you get a new bag? Or?
No, that's not necessary. They last really until they're done. So they don't stick very well, or they just look quite tatty. You lose them. Absolutely. So when you can use a new pair then.
Okay.
And each of these sheaths, the sheath would be worn for 24 hours, but the leg bag can be used for a full 7 days.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you would just renew your sheath, but use the same leg bag and put it onto the new sheath.
Okay. And do you need to wash these or anything?
Not at all. No, you can just reattach it onto the new sheath.
Okay.
Yeah. And then night time, to get a really good night's sleep, you can use a nighttime bag which holds more urine than the daytime bag.
So you would take this off here?
No, you don't have to do that. You can just attach it onto the bottom of this bag. You just take the little cap off the top, and then it fits into that plastic bit there, and then just push that along, and then the urine will just drain right through into the big bag. The urine just
drains right through here into the bag. Okay, so this is opening and closing here?
Yes. Just the same as it would when you were emptying the bag.
Okay.
And then this bag here would sit outside the bed on a stand. So it's in an upright position, and the urine then drains down into this bag overnight.
You're saying a stand, is that important? Where would you get the stand? And it's obviously
absolutely
important?
Yeah. Well, it's better to have the stand because it means that the night bags not lying on the ground for infection control purposes. You want to make sure that
I would imagine as well for safety.
Absolutely, in case you trip over it. Yeah, so if it's on a stand, the stand will fall and usually will alert the person to the fact that it's there. Whereas if it's lying down, you can just stand on top of it. So the stands can be obtained at the same time as the bags, or if you've not got a stand, then again from the local continence team, they would be able to assist you with that.
Okay, lovely.
These nighttime bags are just single use.
Okay.
So in the morning, you would just empty it either by the little tap at the bottom or by tearing the bag on its at the top where it
again, I would assume these would have the manufacturer's instructions.
Absolutely. So every manufacturer has got different ways to empty, and you would just follow their guidelines. So you would just empty the urine into the toilet, and then discard of this bag in the morning.
Again, is that then just in the normal waste?
Absolutely.
Not recyclable?
No. It's just everything just goes in the ordinary waste.
Ordinary waste, okay. Yeah. Would you wrap it up in newspaper?
Yeah, absolutely. You can wrap it up, put it in a carrier bag, whatever. Yeah, as long as it just goes in the ordinary waste rather than in recycling. Okay. Also, it's quite important, this little part here, that's not pulled off.
Okay.
Because if this part comes off the bottom of the leg bag, then the night bag can't be attached on.
Okay, that's a good tip.
Just to make sure that this part always remains on. And the other thing is that some gentlemen choose to not use an additional night bag, and they choose to get up during the night to empty that leg bag. But it's just personal preference.
Personal choice.
Yeah. Certainly for anybody who's at risk of falling when they're out of the bed, then you're better to put a night bag on, so that they're not going to fall.
Okay, so we've done an assessment. We've looked at the sizing of the penis. We've made sure it's flaccid before we actually start to apply, and we're actually making sure that it's clear from here.
Yes,
you've got the right size, you've got it fitted, you've got your night bag on. What about removing it?
Absolutely. So again, as I said with the longer length sheath, you would just soak it in warm soapy water and unroll. If you find that it's very sticky, you can use adhesive removing spray to reduce the stickiness. So you just take up the top bit here, spray the spray down the top, and it will dissolve the adhesive and it will take it off.
Okay. Could you lift it up and give it a wee cut?
Definitely not. No, that might cause a little bit too much trauma. And we don't want to cause any irritation to the skin, and I don't think anybody would let you near them with a pair of scissors.
I don't think a man might like us near them with a pair of scissors.
Absolutely not. So best not to use scissors at all.
Okay.
And certainly don't cut the end off either, because you're still going to have the sheath on the penis, and it's not going to resolve the problem.
And again, you wouldn't use anything round. You wouldn't use any tapes or anything around that either. You would just use the heath. And if it wasn't sticking properly, you would have to ask yourself.
Definitely.
And find out, make sure it's the right.
Yeah. And if a patient comes to you and says, my sheath's not sticking properly, always bear in mind, is it the correct sheath that they're wearing? So that you can...
You were also saying when you were fitting, about putting, would you pull the foreskin back?
No, or just leave the foreskin in its natural position, and ensure that the sheath goes on over the top of it.
Okay.
If the gentleman has been circumcised, however, fit the sheath.
Just fit the sheath as normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the crucial thing is assessing properly.
Absolutely.
And persevering.
Yes.
It might not work the first time, particularly if you're a bit of a novice.
Absolutely.
But to persevere, because it does have longer term benefits for the gentleman and improves their quality of life.
Definitely.
And allows them to continue to do things they've always done before.
Yes.
And you were mentioning, obviously from our point of view, it's really important that people understand that there is help at hand within their local health board, and it's about maybe speaking to their primary care team, either the GP or their local continence services, for more information.
Yes.
And we know in Glasgow it's a spare bladder and bowel service, and the telephone number is 0141 531 8612.
Perfect. And it means that they're getting the best help in a time that they might need that. If they've gone through the assessment process and things are not quite right, there's somebody there that would be able to help them.
And I think the other important thing there is to try different ones. If the first one doesn't work, try different ones.
Definitely.
And again, that's why the local continence services are really important, because they can actually offer you some trial packs to try things before we actually go to a full prescription.
Definitely. It means that you're not wasting money, it also means that they're not wasting equipment, and that equipment's just going to sit to the wayside while they use something else. It means they're not having to get a full box. And also for storage at home, it means that we're not using every cupboard to store the equipment.
Well, that's been really interesting. I think that's really, really fascinating. It's certainly something I think we should be thinking about much more often. Good. So thanks very much for showing us that today, Leslie. That's been great. Thanks very much.